Alright, so we got a brand new company here on the channel. This is called Deep Space FPV, and this is the SEEKER5. I believe they made an 03 version of this last year, and they just came out with the 04 version. This comes with the 04 Pro camera, and I will show you the mount here in a second. I believe the same mount as the 03, but they modified it for the 04 camera, of course, which is a lot different. So this comes in, this is the Dead Cat version, does come in a standard sort of Hybrid X version, and this comes with a Express LS receiver, and also comes, I think it comes with a PBS version and plug and play window receiver as well. So we'll get into the drone here shortly. Just quickly, the stuff that comes in the box, 2 sets of these Gem Fan props, Hurricane 51433, and it's a pretty common prop's been around for a while. Works really well on this particular PID tune. Talk about that in a second. 2 battery straps. I elected just to put one on. I'm pretty sure if you want to secure your battery a little bit better, you can put a second one through here, but I elected not to. I primarily flew this as a kind of a cruiser. Talk about that as well. You get the GoPro screw here for mounting a GoPro, because it has a GoPro mount here, and it does come with a spare as well as a spare antenna holder in the back. And this one does come with GPS, and the GPS sits in the front here underneath this TPU part, and it goes in here, as you can see, underneath. Works really well. It's like a 10th generation GPS. Not sure what the brand is, but it gets like 24, 25 satellites. And it gets a lock really quickly, which is great because they finally, one of these companies finally listened to me and put the GPS in the front. Everyone seems to put the GPS in the back, which is where all the interference from the DJI or whatever digital, whether it's a walk snail or HG0, you know, it radiates, the video transmitter radiates a lot of stuff out of here with the antennas, and you don't get as many satellites. Typically pretty low, under 10, sometimes even not even getting above 7, sometimes like 5 when the GPS is too close to the antennas. And so moving it as far away as possible to the front here gives you the best reception. And GPS rescue was enabled out of the box, so you want to double check your GPS settings, GPS return settings, make sure that you know, you're happy with those. I'm pretty sure they're default settings, so if you want, you know, if you are a person that might use GPS rescue, you should probably look at those settings and adjust them to whatever environment you're flying in. So you get the 2 spare TPU, this GoPro mount and the antenna mount in the back. Camera screw, you get this here. This is I think a buzzer holder, and you get a couple of stickers. The Express LS receiver is in the bottom here in this little TPU part. So sometimes they have this, you know, plate that goes all the way across the bottom, and then the receiver sits underneath the air unit. What they've done here is a sort of a common thing now. You have a staggered bottom plate. So a lower section here that centers the bottom part of the arms, and then you have a top section here that goes across above the arms over here. So it's sort of a staggered setup. And then they've elected to put the Express LS receiver in this little TPU holder here underneath, and then the antenna goes out the back here, and there's a little antenna holder. I would have rather have seen the antenna in the front over here, some sort of a mount. Again, I've mentioned this in a lot of my reviews. I believe the Express LS antenna, especially for something with GPS and might do like a little bit further flying away, long range, where you might lose signal, it's better to put the receiver antenna in the front here, just because when you're flying away from yourself, you still have reception to the antenna, and then when you turn around and fly towards yourself, you don't have like something like a big battery blocking the receiver antenna. So that's what happens. You fly far away and you get signal because this antenna is pointing from the back, but then when you turn around, it gets blocked by the battery. And so typically you'll have to fly at an angle like this, and then do like, you know, 45-degree angles back towards you, so you don't block that antenna when you're furthest away. So something to be aware of. So in terms of the frame specs, pretty typical 5-inch here. I think a lot of 5-inch follow this sort of, you know, the way it's been sort of put together. Got a 2mm top plate, so it's not too tanky. Obviously, some of the tank frames out there will go 2.5 millimeters or 3 millimeters on the top plate, adding a lot of extra weight for more durability, but 2 millimeters is pretty much the standard. You got your staggered sandwich plate here, so it's 2.5 millimeters here, and then also 2.5 millimeters on the other top sandwich plate, and then you have your 5 millimeter arms, and then you can see how the arms are sort of interlocking here. The arms do have a quick release setup here with these screws, so you can pull that out, and then the stack screws are over there, so you don't have to release or unscrew the stack screws to get the arms out if you happen to break them. And you do have these TPU parts here for landing feet, and also arm bumpers to protect the arms and ends of the arms. The motors on here are branded from Deep Space. They're I think they're calling these the Aether, and these are 2207.3 1960 kV. So this is for a 6S setup. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Deep Space, it started by Vivian Tan. I think she was previously, she came from Access Flying, and then before that she came from T-Motor. So she has a lot of contacts with motor manufacturers, or motor, I guess, in the supply chain for building motors. So, and I guess in China, and it's not surprising that they have their own motor. Now, I think this is kind of typical of what I'm finding with a lot of these newer companies that are coming out, is they have a frame design and then perhaps their own motor, but they're sourcing their stacks from some sort of like off-the-shelf place, and not surprisingly, they're using a Hack RC stack. It's a 30x30 board for both the flight controller and the ESC. So it's an F722 Hack RC flight controller. And I believe it has an ICM gyro, and it has 5-volt and 10-volt BECs, and obviously the 10-volt BEC is for the 04 air unit. The 4-in-1 ESC is also 30x30, 60 amps, but it's a 32-bit ESC. So those of you guys that are familiar with the BL32 project that went belly up and they went out of business. So this is, again, using the prototype firmware that all the manufacturers are continuing to put out BL32 ESCs, but you have no way of upgrading the firmware, and but you can still change the settings, of course. Now, there is a pretty small risk of going with these 32-bit ESCs where you may have the supposedly desyncs that I've never seen personally. If you know of anyone that has suffered that, let me know in the comments. But personally, I've never had that had that problem on 32-bit ESCs, even with older firmware. I think they only comes in very specific circumstances, and I've flown dozens of these 32-bit ESCs without any issues. And I can tell you that you don't really need to change any settings anyway. As it comes out of the box, the PID tune with this ESC and the settings that it came with, perfectly fine, really smooth, locked in. I didn't feel like there was any prop wash oscillations, anything weird going on. So I think that ultimately, if you're someone that likes to tweak and tinker with stuff, you may want to stay away from something like this, because obviously you're going to want to change firmware and dial in your ESC settings. But I think for most people that are looking to buying a bind and fly, you're probably not in that category. Most people that are like that are building their own from their own parts. So I think I'm probably barking up the wrong tree. And, someone that's buying a bind and fly is not going to be looking at something that's anyway. Just letting you know that that's what's in here. Some people, there's sort of some controversy about the 32-bit ESCs. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I'm kind of still hoping that these manufacturers kind of move away from that and then stick with something that's an 8-bit ESC with BlueJ firmware, which I feel would work totally fine for something like this. Anyway, moving on, we have the camera mounts. So you can see here that it's got these two screws here that look like it's mounting an 03 camera, but you can see there's a adapter behind there that is mounting the 04 camera. So they have basically this aluminum part here was originally designed for the 03 camera, and then they made a metal adapter there for the 04 camera. So they must have made the spacing in here between the two side cages here, kind of wide, so they can basically insert an adapter between the mount for the 0.3 camera and the 0.4 camera to give you, the ability to mount that 0.4 camera with vibration dampening. And you'll see in the footage, it's perfectly stable, no vibrations, no jello, works really well. I didn't use an ND filter or anything like that on here, and just automatic settings just to see if we would see any vibration issues with this particular mount, and I didn't experience anything. And it was a completely sunny day. I took this out. I waited for a cloudless day to make sure that this mount here was vibration free. There was a lot of days I could have flown where it was cloudy, with like not as much sunshine, and that doesn't really show you whether or not this mount is going to have vibrations or not, because the lower light has a lower shutter speed, and you just don't see the vibrations sometimes when it's not that sunny. So that's why I waited for a completely sunny day to fly this. And yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day here, this is nothing particularly special in terms of there's a lot of 5-inch designs out there. This is pretty typical, pretty similar to a lot of stuff that's come out, especially in the last year or so. Hard to say whether or not this carbon is stronger or less strong than anything that's come out in the last year or so. I would say it's within spec compared to anything I've seen recently. So nothing unusual about this particular frame, good or bad. It really ultimately comes down to their particular design and how it was tuned, and it was pretty much a perfect tune as far as I'm concerned. No issues whatsoever. I felt like it flew, as well as I've seen 4 or 5-inch, especially for something I think like this. For me, I wanted the dead cat because I wanted to do more cruisy, sort of flights with like a lot of sort of battery and longer flight times. And I did fly it with this battery here. This is the GMB 1536S. I did get a bunch of GMB batteries recently that I will do a sort of midterm review. I didn't want to do I wanted to fly these around for a while before I did a video on it, like I did with my last batch of GMB batteries from a couple years ago. So I have this one, 1400 and 1100, and the 1500, I believe. Some of them are high volt, some of them are. This one is not, and it fits on here nice. It's good weight. You can probably expect for something like this, if you take it down to say 3.4 or 3.5 volts, probably about a 7-minute flight on this. Not doing anything truly crazy in terms of aggressive flying, just kind of cruising around, maybe 8 minutes. And the recommended battery for this Pidtune is 1300 to 1550. I did try 1300. You get a little bit less flight time, probably like 5 minutes total. It didn't feel as locked in as on the heavier battery, especially if you're flying in wind. So I would recommend going to like a 1500 or 1550 for that, ultimately the locked in feel. You could go larger if you want more flight time, say like the lithium ion packs, like a 4000 milliamp hour with the 21700 cells. And you probably, for that, you should expect a much longer flight. I would expect something in the 12 to 15 minute range. I wasn't really interested in flying that long. I feel like 7 minutes is plenty long for me, and I don't really fly that far away. But if you are looking for this for long range flying, maybe going out a few kilometers, and which of course you can with 0.4, then the 4000 milliamp hour 21700 packs will work on this. It does take off. It's just that I didn't really do much with it in terms of like figuring out if it was super locked in or not. I didn't feel like it was bad, but it just feels a bit heavy for a 5-inch. It just you're on the higher end of the throttle. Yes, you're getting a lot more flight time, but it is a much heavier setup. So last thing to note is that they are these TPU covers here that are protecting the flight stack, and just if you happen to crash into some dirt or whatever, it's not going to throw in dirt into the flight stack, because these are in a props out setup here where the props are going to be flying stuff into the stack instead of the camera, and that's why these are here. You just say one little M2 screw on the side, and you can pull that back, and then you have access to the USB-C port for changing your settings. But this is, there's a lot of these sort of side plates now on a lot of these drones. They don't weigh a ton, but for those of you that may be flying in a situation where you're in a lot of dirt or grass, for example, this will protect the stack from getting wet and any kind of rocks or anything getting thrown in there that might knock off a component off the flight stack, a flight board or whatever. So nothing wrong with that. Nothing. I approve of that. They're protecting you from any potential damage in the future, and should definitely recommend leaving those on. All right, so I'll leave links to the full 4K flight footage and also the DVR footage. So I've only shown you parts of it here in this review section. But if you want to see the unedited full videos of the flight, I will post that down in the video description, so you can click on those links. Those are unlisted videos. And let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. I feel like it flies super nice, very good pid tune. Motors are fine. I would say it's typical, performance compared to, an iFlight or T-motor, Gep RC motor out there. Definitely a solid motor, good power, very smooth. Pid tune's great in this one. So overall, definitely feel like this is one of the better 5-inch ones I've reviewed recently. Not sure I'm going to be reviewing too many more. I'm going to keep flying this one here for 2025. This is probably my go-to for any sort of 5-inch flights I'll be doing. So if you watch this video in the future and you're wondering how it's doing, let me know down in the comments below. You can ask me, and I'll definitely give you an update on that one. Perhaps I'll do an update video later on, maybe on the second channel. So if you want to see an update on this one, let me know in the comments below as well. But that'll do it for this video. I'll link this down in the video description if you want to check it out, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.